How's it going, everybody? So we're going to continue on with our graphing polynomials unit. We haven't started graphing. We're going to start doing some basic graphs today. So hopefully this will kind of help with some things. So yesterday we talked about end behavior. I'm going to bring this down here so we can talk about that again. So we have our little chart. However you want to look at it. I still like it this way, especially for graphing. We got even, we got odd. We got positive, we got negative. So remember, these are my leading coefficients. This is our degree. So if it's even and positive, they're both going up for our end behavior, sorry. If it's even and negative, they're both going down. Odd and positive, it's gonna go down, then up. If you connect the tips of the arrows, it should be a positive slope. And then down, and then up and then down, sorry. That's why I draw them like that, because if you connect the tips of the arrows, it should be a negative slope for an odd and a minus. So an odd and a negative. So keep that in mind. We're going to continue to use these throughout the day. And go on from there. So first of all, we need to understand is multiplicity. So multiplicity is the amount the zero is repeated. So how many times does that zero actually occur? So if the multiplicity is odd, the function is going to cross the x-axis. So if it has a multiplicity of 1, and I got to sketch, whatever's going to happen, it's just going to kind of cross the axis. It's just going to cross it. Let me fix it a little bit kind of to clear that up. So it's just going to cross it. So whatever's going to happen, it's just going to go there. If it has a multiplicity of 3, it's going to bend over it. So it's going to come, it's going to kind of bend across it. Instead of crossing it straight through, it's going to bend across it. So you'll see a designated bend there. Now, if the multiplicity is even, it's going to bounce. So it's going to come and it's going to bounce. It's going to touch and go. Or if it's over here, for instance, it's going to come up, touch, and go. It's going to touch and go. So odds are going to cross it. It's going to go either straight through it or it's going to kind of bend across it, depending on how big the multiplicity is. If it's even, it's going to bounce. And the bigger the multiplicity there, if it's 4 or 6 or 8, it's just going to be a wider bounce. So let's look at this. So use the exponents of the factor to determine the multiplicity. So here, if I saw the first one, I got x equals, stop moving. X equals -4, and I got x equals 1 as my two zeros, because you're setting them equal to 0 and solving. So since this one's got a degree of 2, it's got a multiplicity of 2. This one has a multiplicity of 1, because it occurs once. So that's what I'm looking for here. And determine the behavior. So this one is going to bounce and it's going to cross. So kind of looking at those. Cool. All right, number 2 over here. I have x squared, so x is equal to 0. X plus 4, so x is equal to -4. I got x minus 5, so x is equal to 5. The x squared, so x is equal to 0, has a multiplicity of 2. And it's going to bounce. X minus 4 has a multiplicity of 3. And it's going to cross. Minus 5, so x is equal to 5 has a multiplicity of 4. So it's going to bounce as well. And then lastly over here, I got x is equal to 1, x is equal to 7. This one has a multiplicity of 1, so it's going to cross. This one has a multiplicity of 2, and it's going to bounce. So I'm taking those multiplicities, looking and seeing what they're going to do. Evens are going to bounce. Odds are going to cross. So let's look at some basic graphing. I'm not going to go into a lot of huge detail. I'm going to be very picky about the end behavior and the zeros and the multiplicity. So those are the 3 things I'm really going to look for. So step 1, I want to find the zeros and the multiplicity. So just what I did here, 1/4 is just a constant. So I'm not going to worry about that. The x plus 1 squared is going to be x equals -1 with a multiplicity of 2. X minus 4, so x can equal 4, and that's got a multiplicity of 1. Okay? My end behavior here, I got 2 plus 1 is 3, so it's a degree 3. And this leading coefficient is 1/4, so it's a positive leading coefficient. So my end behavior would be odd and positive. So odd and positive is gonna go down and then up. Kind of a quick way of remembering all of that stuff. So let's look at kind of a graph is what I'm gonna look for here. I accidentally hit the record button, sorry. So I'm gonna go ahead, I got my end behaviors, I got my multiplicities. I'm gonna go ahead and plot my zeros. So x equals -1 and x equals 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, my end behavior. It's gonna go down and then up. So I know from here, this is my last point, it's gonna go down, this one's gonna go up. Okay? So kind of looking at what's gonna happen, that's gonna tell you if it's up or bottom. So at -1, it's got a multiplicity of 2. So it's gotta come up here, it's gotta bounce. All right, so now this one's gonna go straight through because it's a multiplicity of 1, it's across, so somehow these gotta connect. So we can just connect them down a little bit so you can see what's going on. So I'm just looking for the general shape. I'm not looking really for how far down this is gonna go right here. I just really wanna know where it crosses and where it touches the axis. Is the end behavior correctly and it doesn't look right. So that's what I'm looking for right now in these basic sketches. Okay? You can always type this in the calculator right here. Hit graph, you can hit zoom 6, it'll give you a basic function, graph, and you are good to go. All right, let's look at another one. A couple more. So here, finding my zeros. So x is equal to 2, x is equal to -1, and x is equal to 1. They all have a multiplicity of 1. You can abbreviate those how you want to. So my end behavior, if you add up all your multiplicities, that's gonna be your degree. So I got a degree 1, 2, 3. If you multiply it all out, you will as well. Here's my leading coefficient, degree 3. So that is odd, and 2 is even, or is positive. So odd and positive is gonna go down, then up. So I'm gonna start here. X is equal to 2, x is equal to 1, and x is equal to -1. So I know here it's gonna go down and then up. I know it's gotta pass through. It's just crossing through them all. So I'm gonna cross, it's gotta turn, cross, go down somewhere. Don't make it super tight. So come down so I can at least see the bend and see that you're crossing through it. And that's my general sketch. That's all I'm looking for today is where's it crossing, how's it crossing, and what's the end behavior. All right, let's look at number 3. So I got this part right here. So x is equal to 0 with a multiplicity of 2. This one right here, x is equal to -2. That's a 2 with a multiplicity of 3. Here, x is equal to 1 with a multiplicity of 1. So to add those up, I have a degree 6. My leading coefficient is 2, so negative leading coefficient. So that becomes even and negative, so E minus, they're both gonna go down. If you have questions about where I'm getting these, please hit me up on Remind. Please send me an email. So we need to understand the basic concepts. So here, x is equal to 0 because of that x squared. X is equal to -2 and x is equal to +1. So I know at the ends, they're both gonna go down. Once again, I'm not super picky about what's gonna go on here. At -2, I have a multiplicity of 3. So it's gonna kind of come up here and it's gonna bend across. So I wanna see that bend. Instead of going straight across, it's gonna bend. At -2, so that took care of that. At 0 over here, it's a multiplicity, so it's gonna bounce. So it's gonna have to turn and it's gonna bounce. Yeah. And then it's gonna go straight through here. So that's kind of what I got. I'm gonna erase this and clean it up now that I know the general shape. So -2, 0, and 1. So I know it's gonna come across, it's gonna bend here, it's gonna bounce, and it's gonna turn and come down. So it's gonna bend, bounce, and you can kind of get that going here. So bend, it's gonna turn here somewhere, it's gonna bounce, and then over here, my hand got stuck on the edge. It's gonna kind of bounce. You got your general shape. That's what I'm looking for here. Nothing super, super crazy. Just looking at our general shapes. All right, last one. And you got a few practices. So here, -3, just a constant, no impact on the zeros. So x plus 1, so x equals -1, it's got a multiplicity of 2. X minus 1, so x equals 1, has a multiplicity of 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4, so I have a degree of 4 and negative leading coefficient because that -3 out front. So even degree, so E minus, once again, is down and down. So I got 1 and -1. So this is kind of a fun one here because it's coming down, they're both negative at the end. It's gonna bounce and then it's gonna bounce. So I have kind of like the letter M here. It's gonna come up, even degree, it's gonna bounce. It's gonna turn somewhere, bounce, and then go through. Cool? And then later we'll talk about the more specifics, like where is that actually crossing and all of that stuff, because we can get other points. But for today, I just want a basic sketch. I want to know where it's crossing or where it's bouncing off the x-axis, and what's the end behavior, what's the general shape of this graph gonna look like. So once again, find your zeros, find the multiplicity, determine your end behavior, and then plot and give me a sketch. Cool? Once again, there's your end behavior chart. If you like that, use it. Other than that, kind of look back at your notes and we'll go from there. So once again, if you have any questions, please, please, please do not hesitate to let me know. I'll be glad to work with you, figure out a way to get better. All right, so enjoy this, practice a few of the graphs that are on E-class, and then next week we will pick back up graphing a little bit more accurately and move on with this unit. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.